Any discovery of a Roman dodecahedron is remarkable and unusual because there's not many more than 100 known to exist.
The Roman dodecahedron remains one of the greatest unsolved puzzles in European archaeology. This strange object is a small, hollow artifact made from bronze or a copper alloy, shaped with 12 pentagonal faces. At the center of every face is a circular opening, yet no two holes are exactly the same size. Instead, their diameters follow a deliberate pattern, unique to each artifact. Every one of its 20 corners is finished with a rounded knob, giving it a distinctive appearance. Most examples range from around 4 to 11 centimeters in height and weigh anywhere between 35 and 580 grams. Archaeological evidence consistently places these objects between the 2nd and 4th centuries AD. Despite centuries of research, their true purpose has never been definitively explained. The first modern discovery of a Roman dodecahedron took place in 1739, when one was uncovered in a field near Aston in Hertfordshire, England. Since then, roughly 130 more have been found. Their locations reveal a striking pattern. Nearly every example comes from the western frontier of the Roman Empire, Roman Britain, Gaul, Germania, the Alpine regions, and Roman Pannonia in present-day Hungary. These were territories guarded and occupied by Roman military forces along the empire's borders. What makes this even more intriguing is where these artifacts are not found. None have been discovered in the Roman heartland, not in Italy, Greece, Egypt, North Africa, or the eastern provinces, where most surviving Roman texts originated. The artifacts themselves have always been on display in museums around the world, yet the pattern connecting them remained overlooked for generations. Before we continue, subscribe for more incredible historical mysteries and ancient discoveries. Then, in June 2023, an important breakthrough occurred. During a community excavation on farmland in Lincolnshire, Richard Parker of the Norton Disney History and Archaeology Group unearthed the largest and best preserved Roman dodecahedron ever discovered in Britain. Its remarkable condition immediately attracted widespread attention. After being placed on display at the Lincoln Museum, the artifact inspired a fresh wave of scientific investigation, opening new possibilities for understanding this mysterious class of objects. Around the same period, Italian physicist Emilia Carolina Sparavigna from the Politecnico di Torino had been publishing peer-reviewed research using computational geometry to study known Roman dodecahedra. Her findings revealed something extraordinary. The varying hole sizes on each artifact were not random. They followed precise mathematical proportions. Even more remarkable, this proportional relationship appeared consistently across dozens of dodecahedra produced in different regions of the Roman Empire by craftsmen who had no known contact with one another. That consistency strongly suggested the objects were built according to a shared system of measurement. It was evidence pointing towards a carefully designed instrument rather than an ornamental curiosity. For decades, countless explanations had been proposed. Some believed the dodecahedra were knitting tools, yet that theory failed to explain the carefully varied hole sizes. Others argued they served as candle holders, but that could not account for the exceptional precision of their casting. Others suggested they held religious significance, but this idea struggled to explain why almost every example came from military frontier provinces instead of major religious centers. Some even proposed they were gaming pieces, yet the expensive bronze construction made such an everyday use seem highly unlikely. Every theory managed to explain one feature while creating new contradictions elsewhere. Sparavigna's mathematical analysis offered something different. For the first time, a single interpretation appeared capable of explaining every major characteristic of these artifacts. It suggested that Roman craftsmen had created a specialized measuring device designed for practical use along the empire's western frontiers. Its calibration was built directly into its geometry, allowing anyone trained in its use to read measurements simply by understanding the proportional relationship between its openings. The artifacts themselves had never changed. The hidden mathematics had always been there. What changed was our ability to recognize and analyze those patterns using modern computational techniques. To understand what Roman dodecahedra may truly have been, and why historians have debated their purpose for nearly 300 years, we first need to examine their physical design, the remarkable skill required to manufacture them, and the clues hidden within their craftsmanship. From the very beginning, these objects displayed a level of precision that hinted at a purpose far more advanced than simple decoration. A dodecahedron is a three-dimensional geometric solid made up of 12 flat faces. In its regular form, the same shape the ancient philosopher Plato associated with the structure of the cosmos in his dialogue Timaeus, each face is a perfect pentagon, identical in size and proportion to the others. Unlike the perfect geometric dodecahedron described in mathematics, the Roman versions were built with several unique modifications. They were completely hollow inside, and every one of their 12 pentagonal faces contained a circular opening. These openings were intentionally made in different sizes. Some were noticeably larger, others much smaller, yet the arrangement was never random. Each artifact followed its own carefully planned pattern, and modern research by Emilia Carolina Sparavigna has shown that these proportions remain surprisingly consistent even among dodecahedra discovered hundreds of miles apart. Another distinctive feature is found at every corner of the object. Where the pentagonal faces meet, the Romans added small spherical knobs. These rounded projections were not merely decorative. They altered the balance and weight of the artifact and may have acted as fixed reference points for positioning, alignment, or precise measurement. The craftsmanship behind these mysterious objects was equally remarkable. Roman dodecahedra were produced from bronze or copper alloy, using the advanced lost wax casting method, also known as cire perdue. The process began with a detailed wax model of the object. Craftsmen then coated the model in clay or plaster to create a mold. Once heated, the wax melted away, leaving behind a perfectly shaped cavity. Molten bronze was poured into this space, and after the metal cooled, the outer mold was carefully broken apart to reveal the finished artifact. This was far from a simple manufacturing technique. It demanded experienced metalworkers, specialized tools, high temperatures, and valuable raw materials. Bronze itself was an expensive resource, requiring copper and tin to be mined, refined, and transported before casting could even begin. Producing an object of this complexity represented a considerable investment in both labor and materials. The finished dodecahedra clearly reflect that investment. Their pentagonal faces are carefully formed, the circular holes are cleanly cut and precisely positioned, and the spherical knobs display impressive uniformity. Every detail points to skilled professional craftsmen with a strong understanding of geometry and metalworking. These were not rough handmade curiosities. They were carefully engineered instruments created with a specific purpose in mind. The earliest recorded modern discovery dates back to 1739, when Pierre-Joseph Le Tourati uncovered one of these unusual objects in a field near Aston, Hertfordshire. Recognizing its significance, he reported the discovery to the Society of Antiquaries, which later published a description in its journal Archaeology. The publication immediately attracted attention, but it also raised an unsettling question. What exactly was this object? Neither Le Tourati nor the scholars examining it could provide an answer. Everything about the artifact, its material, craftsmanship, and archaeological context clearly indicated that it belonged to the Roman era. Yet it matched no known category of Roman equipment, tool, or ceremonial object. Its function remained a complete mystery. As the years passed, more examples began to surface across Europe. Instead of solving the puzzle, each new discovery only made it more difficult to explain. By the beginning of the 21st century, around 130 Roman dodecahedra had been catalogued in museums and archaeological collections. Their distribution revealed a fascinating pattern. Large numbers were discovered in Roman Britain, throughout Gaul, modern-day France, in the Germanic provinces bordering the Rhine and Danube, across the Alpine regions, and in Pannonia, which roughly corresponds to modern Hungary and neighboring territories. Yet one fact stood out above everything else. These objects were virtually absent from the very heart of the Roman Empire. None had been found in Italy, Greece, Egypt, North Africa, Syria, or the wealthy eastern provinces where Roman culture flourished and where most surviving Roman writings were produced. This was no coincidence. The discoveries formed a clear geographical band stretching across the empire's western and northern frontiers, the very regions where Roman legions maintained permanent forts, constructed roads and defensive walls, and expanded imperial control into newly conquered lands. That pattern strongly suggested the dodecahedra were connected to life on the frontier. They may have been linked to the military, engineering, surveying, construction, or some other practical activity essential to maintaining Rome's borders. But while the distribution revealed where these mysterious artifacts were used, it still offered no definitive answer to the far more important question. Over the centuries, countless theories have been proposed to explain the purpose of the Roman dodecahedron. Each idea managed to answer a few questions, but none could fully explain every feature of these remarkable artifacts. One of the earliest suggestions was that they served as candle holders. According to this theory, the circular openings could hold candles of different thicknesses, while the rounded knobs acted as small supports to keep the object stable. Since the artifacts were made of bronze, they would also withstand heat without difficulty. At first, the idea seemed reasonable, but the more closely researchers examined the evidence, the more problems appeared. If these were simply candle holders, why were they manufactured with such extraordinary geometric precision? Why did the holes follow carefully controlled mathematical proportions instead of being randomly sized? And perhaps most importantly, why were these objects almost exclusively found along Rome's frontier regions rather than throughout Italy, where candle holders would have been just as practical? The theory could not answer those questions. Another explanation gained widespread attention during the 21st century. Researcher Martin Hallett demonstrated in a series of videos that Roman dodecahedra could be used to knit gloves. He argued that the different hole sizes matched the varying widths of human fingers, while the spherical knobs provided convenient anchor points for the yarn. In his reconstruction, the object functioned as a frame around which gloves could be knitted. Not a single Roman dodecahedron has produced traces of fibers, yarn, or any other material associated with textile work. None of the surviving examples display the wear patterns that repeated contact with thread would be expected to leave behind. Their distribution also raises serious doubts. If these were ordinary household knitting tools, they should appear across the Roman world. Instead, they are concentrated almost entirely in military frontier provinces. The mathematics presents an even bigger obstacle. Human hands vary continuously in size, meaning glove-making tools would naturally require flexible or individual measurements. Yet Roman dodecahedra display fixed and repeatable hole proportions that remain remarkably consistent across artifacts discovered hundreds of miles apart. That level of standardization is difficult to reconcile with a tool intended for knitting. Another popular theory focused on religion and philosophy. Because the dodecahedron is one of the 5 Platonic solids, some scholars suggested the objects carried symbolic or spiritual significance. In Plato's Timaeus, the 5 regular solids, the tetrahedron, cube, octahedron, icosahedron, and dodecahedron, represent the fundamental building blocks of the universe. The dodecahedron, in particular, became associated with the heavens, the 5th element or quintessence, since Roman intellectual life was heavily influenced by Greek philosophy. This explanation initially appeared convincing. Educated Romans were familiar with Platonic and Pythagorean ideas, making it entirely possible that the geometric form held symbolic meaning. However, this theory also leaves major questions unanswered. If the object was purely ceremonial or philosophical, why manufacture it with expensive bronze using such advanced casting techniques? Why include carefully calibrated holes of different diameters? And why are these artifacts overwhelmingly concentrated in remote military frontier provinces instead of the great cultural centers where Greek philosophy flourished? The symbolism may explain the shape, but it does not explain the engineering. A far more practical interpretation emerged from the study of Roman engineering itself. The Roman Empire depended on precision. Roads stretched across continents. Aqueducts carried water over enormous distances. Military forts followed standardized layouts, and entire cities were planned according to carefully measured designs. None of this would have been possible without accurate surveying. Rome employed highly trained land surveyors known as the grammatici. These specialists played a vital role in both military expansion and civil administration. They marked the boundaries of farms and colonies, planned roads, designed fortifications, and imposed geometric order on newly conquered territories. Their work shaped the empire. Modern historian Brian Campbell explored this profession in detail through the writings of the Roman land surveyors, a comprehensive study based on the surviving Corpus Agrimensorum Romanorum, the collection of texts written by Roman surveying experts. Those records reveal something important. Roman surveyors relied on specialized instruments designed for measuring distances, establishing straight lines, and laying out complex geometric plans with remarkable accuracy. And that raises an intriguing possibility. Could the mysterious Roman dodecahedron have been one of those specialized instruments, its true purpose hidden not in mythology or domestic life, but in the mathematics and engineering that helped build an empire? Among the surveying instruments used by the Romans, the groma was perhaps the most important. This cross-shaped device, mounted on a vertical pole, enabled surveyors to establish perfectly perpendicular sight lines when laying out roads, forts, and property boundaries. Another essential tool was the chorobates, described by the Roman architect Vitruvius. Designed as a precision leveling instrument, it helped engineers maintain accurate horizontal lines across long distances, particularly during the construction of aqueducts. These instruments are well documented in historical sources, but they may not represent the complete toolkit of Roman surveyors. This is where the Roman dodecahedron enters the discussion. One increasingly persuasive theory proposes that these mysterious objects functioned as rangefinders or calibration devices, specialized instruments used to measure angles and estimate distances in the field. One of the strongest theories suggests the Roman dodecahedron was a range-finding tool. The idea is simple. By looking through different pairs of holes at an object of known height, a Roman surveyor could use basic geometry to estimate its distance. This would explain why each hole is a different size. They weren't decorative. They were carefully designed to create specific viewing angles for accurate measurements. Such a tool would have been invaluable for planning roads, forts, and military camps across the expanding Roman Empire. The theory gained even more support through the work of physicist Emilia Carolina Sparavigna. Using computational analysis, she discovered that dodecahedra found across different Roman provinces shared the same mathematical proportions. That level of consistency is difficult to dismiss as coincidence. If these objects had been candle holders, toys, or decorative items, their dimensions would likely have varied widely. Instead, they followed a common geometric standard, strong evidence that they were practical measuring instruments built for a specific purpose. Measuring instruments cannot rely on arbitrary dimensions. To produce accurate and repeatable results, they must be calibrated according to fixed mathematical relationships. Only then can different users obtain the same measurements, teach the same techniques, and trust the same results, regardless of where the instrument was made. That is precisely the pattern revealed by the Roman dodecahedra. Although crafted by different artisans across distant provinces, they all appear to follow the same geometric blueprint. And that shared function increasingly points toward one conclusion. These mysterious bronze objects were not ornaments or curiosities. Researchers now believe Roman dodecahedra may have been precision measuring instruments rather than mysterious ceremonial objects. That theory gained major support in 2023 when the remarkably well-preserved Norton Disney Roman dodecahedron was discovered in Lincolnshire by Richard Parker. Unlike most examples, it was almost perfectly intact, allowing scientists to create an ultra-precise 3D digital scan. The analysis revealed that its proportions matched those of more than 100 other Roman dodecahedra, suggesting they were built to a common mathematical standard, not randomly designed. Researchers now believe these bronze objects were likely used by Roman surveyors and engineers while building roads, forts, and settlements across the empire. Although their exact purpose remains uncertain, leading theories suggest they may have worked as rangefinders, measuring gauges, or surveying tools. After nearly 300 years of speculation, modern technology has transformed the mystery. Roman dodecahedra are no longer seen as simple curiosities. They are increasingly recognized as scientific instruments. The question is no longer what they were, but exactly what they were designed to measure. Researchers now believe these bronze artifacts were precision measuring instruments, built to consistent mathematical standards and used across the Roman Empire. Rather than toys, religious objects, or candle holders, they were likely practical tools that helped Roman engineers survey land and construct roads, forts, and cities. While their exact function is still being debated, one thing is becoming increasingly clear: the answer was hidden in their geometry all along. For centuries, these remarkable objects sat silently in museums, waiting for technology capable of decoding their design. Now, after almost 2,000 years, the Roman dodecahedra are finally beginning to reveal their secrets. The mystery that started in 1739 is closer than ever to being solved, and it turns out the key was never hidden in ancient texts. It was hidden in the mathematics engraved into bronze from the very beginning.